President Donald Trump was asked on CNBC this week if he'd considered changes to entitlement programs such as Medicare and Social Security. Let's watch.
Have you changed your outlook on how to handle entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Mr. President? It seems like something has to be done, or else we're going to be stuck at 120% of debt to GDP forever.
So first of all, there is a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting, and in terms of also the theft and the bad management of entitlements, tremendous bad management of entitlements. There's tremendous amounts of things and numbers of things you can do.
President Joe Biden fired back at Trump's comments, writing on X, "Not on my watch." The View's Whoopi Goldberg also weighed in on Trump's Social Security remarks. Let's hear what she had to say.
Yeah, we could put you in jail. For all of your entitlements. You know, Social Security is not an entitlement. We paid for that.
I mean, she's right. And I think the timidity with which Republicans tend to weigh in on this reflects that they know how unpopular cutting Social Security is. It's why they have to couch it in other kind of terms, talk about raising the retirement age, try to sneak it in under the radar, because when it is made explicit, both Republicans and Democrats, I should say, who have tried to cut Social Security over the year, have gotten huge backlash. Remember, Joe Biden raised this as an issue during the State of the Union. One of the, I think, better moments for him that wasn't as well covered because there were some pretty bad moments. But he brought this up, I think, knowing that it could tee up a moment for him in front of a bunch of Republicans where they're either forced to clap and agree with him or to reveal their ideological priors and boo what he knows is a very popular program in front of the American people that so many folks rely on for their core income.
Sure. Look, I can acknowledge when things that I think are right are not necessarily popular. It's pretty clear that doing something to Social Security risks alienating many voters, many senior citizens for whom that is an important source of income. I happen to believe the fact that the program is likely to go insolvent in the next 10 years is worrisome, and something should be done to fix that. I don't obviously want to take benefits away from people who have already paid into the system. They're entitled to what they paid into it. I think it should be phased out for younger people who will never see those same benefits because it's going to run out of money. That said, it is clearly not a popular thing to do. Being honest about the difficulties we'll have paying for our entitlements in the future is not something that politicians tend to win points for. So was it a wise political move to bring up this topic on Trump's part? No. And in fact, in the past, he clashed with other Republicans who, again, with whom I agree on this issue, but he told off Paul Ryan and others, the kind of Mitt Romney era of business Republicans, that we were not going to touch entitlements, and that helped him win the election in 2016.
Yeah, and remember, this was a big issue between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders back in 2020. I believe it was the first and maybe only negative attack ad Bernie's ever run, and it was on this issue of Joe Biden's history of threatening to cut Social Security. There's maybe apocryphal, no, it's true. There's a story about how back in 2012, Bernie quietly floated running against Barack Obama, who was very popular at the time. You can see the headlines now, racist white senator dares to challenge first black president. But it was put out there because there were some rumors that even Barack Obama was going to take aim at these Social Security benefits. Now, it's worth noting that there's a lot of talk about Social Security insolvency. The Social Security Trust Fund is projected to run out by 2033, but that doesn't mean that Social Security is going to be bankrupt or default because there's this additional funding mechanism, which is payroll taxes. And one innovation, one reform that could go a long way to increasing the solvency of Social Security is to raise the Social Security tax cap. So if you're not already aware, if you earn $168,000 a year, you're paying the exact same amount towards Social Security as somebody who makes $1 billion, $10 billion, $100 billion a year, because there's a cap on what percentage of your income actually gets paid into Social Security. If you were to keep it so that it's the same percentage that the person who's making $20,000, $40,000, $60,000 pays into it, even if you're a billionaire, that would do wonders to enrich the system. And there's some question as to why there's so much opposition to that when there's so few billionaires that would actually be implicated, or very rich people who would be implicated by that kind of a policy.
I think you wanted to talk about raising the retirement age as well.
Oh, so the reason this particular conversation has blown up in a big way isn't just because the president merely talked about it at the State of the Union. No, it really blew up because the heavy hitters are weighing in. People like Ben Shapiro. He weighed in on Twitter earlier this week with what I don't think was intended to be a whole fulsome argument about the merits of Social Security, but he got so much backlash from people across the political aisle that he put out a new video this morning making the case for why he thinks the Social Security age should be raised. He tweeted out earlier today, "Yesterday, I apparently broke the internet with the hot and spicy subject of ... Social Security and retirement. Today, I broke down what are actually two separate arguments that many are incorrectly conflating. One, that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme that is 100% going to bankrupt the country." I just addressed some of that. "And two, it's a free country. If you have money to retire and you want to, that's your choice. But work is a large part of a fulfilling and purposeful life. And retirement, as we know it today, sending the elderly out to pasture to wither away, is not how we were created to live." So I and others pushed back against this because I think for folks who work at the keyboard, like us, who sit in a chair all day, to look at the computer all day, and who also have pursued professions because of our kind of values and our dreams and our hopes and our desires, and it's something that we really want to do and have a passion for, the idea of retirement seems horrible. Oh, what am I going to do with my day? I was on the internet for free before I became a journalist, and I'll be on the internet for free after I stop being a journalist. But if you are someone who actually labors in their job, who has to stand all day, who has to lift things, who has to drive a car, who has strained eyesight, who has physical implications for your labor, and also who doesn't find it especially fulfilling, it's something that you do for a paycheck, they don't want to be working into their 70s, like so many Americans, even as they draw on their Social Security benefits, are forced to do because cost of living is so high.
Right. Well, I mean, some do and some don't. People should continue to work if they continue to find value in it. I agree with you. I think phrasing it the way Ben Shapiro did invites exactly the kind of comparison you made. We're like, well, of course you want to work forever. Your job is easy. I mean, easy is not the right word.
Chomsky can
Your
keep
job
working.
is not physically exhausting in the same way. I mean, it's still straining. Sometimes this job is psychologically
working
straining.
At the Twitter mines, Robby.
Yeah, I take your point. So I would never want to, make it sound like I want people to do physical labor till they literally drop dead. Though it is true, the life expectancy has happily gone further up. I think when Social Security was first designed, the life expectancy was lower than the retirement age at which you would qualify. I mean, obviously the debate here is, and we don't agree, and it's somewhat philosophical, but it's about how much support the state ought to offer people and for how long. And in an ideal world, people should be taken care of and should work to the point at which work is no longer satisfying to some degree. I mean, everyone has to do work to some degree at some point in their life, even if working is not fun and we'd all rather frolic in the fields. That's not a realistic right, but this isn't, scenario.
We're not debating a prohibition against work. If people want to keep working, they can keep working. The question is whether or not they should have to keep working at an age. And I got to say this, there's a difference between lifespan and quality of life. And when you start breaking down life expectancies for various communities, if you are, a black man, your life expectancy is very different than if you're a white woman. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of these really cavalier statements ignore the fact that a lot of black people are upset because they feel like they've been paying into Social Security and we disproportionately don't get the benefit from drawing down on it as other people because of low life expectancy and bad health outcomes. So, another thing that Biden raised and didn't get a lot of attention from the State of the Union was talking about a call to increase taxes on the rich and for corporations. Another moment where the Republicans in the room kind of had to quietly bristle because they couldn't applaud something which is overwhelmingly popular. Taxing the rich is very popular. So as we make arguments about the insolvency or non-insolvency of Social Security and what kind of world we want to live in, there is a question of interrogating whether or not this is in fact a zero-sum game and whether or not the only way to enrich a program like this is to make poor and working class people work longer and older, or whether or not there are people who have maybe gotten a disproportionate piece of the pie that could help us create a society where your grandmother doesn't have to be bagging groceries at Safeway because we just are willing to tax what was Elizabeth Warren's plan? 2 cents on every dollar over above $500 million or whatever.
Well, sure,
it was
but I mean that goes against the point Whoopi was making, which is like we paid into it, so we deserve it. If it's
That's true.
we paid into it, but now we need money from other people to actually get benefits.
That's where we're getting back to the first plan, which is just to raise the cap. There's not a separate wealth tax, but to make sure that millionaires and billionaires and even people making $500,000 a year are paying proportionally as much into this program as everybody else.
Well, that does it for us today on Rising. We will be back with another episode tomorrow. We hope you tune in then.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while you're on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
See you tomorrow.
Take care.